Happy Friday, y'all, and welcome to our kitchen. Got a couple announcements for you, and then I'm going to show you how to make tomato soup. Parent-teacher conference signups are being sent out today. Now, the parent-teacher conference is going to be different this year. Yeah, it's going to be online, but it's also different in that not everyone is going to have a parent-teacher conference. We're going to start off with parent-teacher conferences for Year 1 IB students. So if you are a Year 1 IB student, you'll be getting an email today. Other emails will be sent out on Monday. Our first round of parent-teacher conferences are Wednesday and Thursday next week. Speaking of next week, it's a 4-day week because May the 1st is a holiday. So the virtual choir is underway. That's for secondary and middle school. Mr. King has sent out directions, but Mrs. King is right in there helping out too, playing all those piano tracks and directing her middle schoolers. So, musical people, kind of musical people, even non-musical people, sign up, get involved, listen to the practice track. Not only the practice track, you can listen to the actual track now and get ready to sing your parts. I think May the 4th, an auspicious day, is the deadline. I'll be sure and get mine in by then too. I have a special announcement cooked up by the folks making our literary journal. Thanks a lot, guys. It's going to be awesome.
Dear QSI students, we are the creative writing class and we are currently working on our journal called The Creative Critters. And we need your help.
Your poems, your stories, and artworks.
Please send us your work till April 30th to either one of these emails.
We are all very excited to read your work, and who knows, maybe your writing will be published in our journal.
All you have to do is send us a poem, short story, or an artwork that you are proud of.
Sharing your writing or artwork can be scary, but it can also be empowering. We all take inspiration in the creative expressions of others. So be an inspiration to those around you, and share your stories, poems, and artwork through the QSIB Literary Journal.
More important announcement, the map test this spring will not take place. We cannot do map tests remotely. That's because when we do a map test, those tests need to be monitored by both a proctor, a teacher who's there in the room with you, and a map test coordinator. Neither of those people can be present in your house. That would be a little weird. So we're not going to do map tests this spring. Map tests will resume when we're back in the building.
Well, it seems so real. I can see it. And it seems so real. I can feel it. And it seems so real. I can taste it. And it seems so real. I can hear it. So I cannot touch it.
Believe it or not, even though it's tomato soup, you don't start with tomatoes. You start with an onion. Now, you might not be a fan of the onion, but when you cook an onion down, it becomes a lot more mellow in flavor, and it's really going to give this soup what it needs. So you're going to start with onion, 1 tablespoon of butter, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Let me show you how you do it. All right, so to start off, you're going to take a tablespoon of butter. You're going to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and you're going to let that warm up gently. All right, I've got my stove on about a 5 there. You don't want to get it too hot. So you're going to take that chopped onion, and as you can see, it's not a really fine dice I gave that onion. I just kind of chopped them up. It doesn't really matter that much. And you're going to add those to the butter and olive oil once the butter is melted. All right, and you're just going to stir that around a little bit. turn down your heat a little bit. I've got it on a 5 now. I'm going to take it down to a 4 and cover it. And you're going to let it stay that way for about 20 minutes or so. I'm going to check it in a little bit. See you then. Alright, so as you can see, they are cooking away. They are maybe a bit darker in color than they were, but they are not brown. You do not want your onions to get caramelized. That's when the sugar starts turning into carbon and they get brown. So you want them just really, really soft like that. Alright, so they're ready. What I'm going to do now is probably kind of weird for you all. This is flour, and I'm going to add flour to this mixture of onion, olive oil, and butter. All right, so one of the classic things of cooking is to create what is called a roux, and that's at equal parts of flour and some kind of fat. So we've got our fat here, that's olive oil and butter, and I've got flour. I had 1 tablespoon of butter and 2 tablespoons of olive oil, so I'm going to put 3 tablespoons of flour. Doesn't have to be exactly right. Into this mixture right here. Alright, and mix that in. Alright, and what you want to happen is you want that flour to just kind of mix in, and after it's mixed in for a while, it's going to start to thicken. Alright, so it's going to make a paste around the onions there. Alright, so you got this thick mixture of flour, butter, olive oil, and onion, and you're just going to let that sit for a few minutes here. While I'm letting those onions with flour and butter and olive oil cook down, I'm going to tell you one of the most important ingredients that no one ever talks about when it comes to cooking, and that is actually thyme. So if I were just to make this recipe really quickly in a few minutes, it'd be all the same ingredients, but the flavors will be totally different. It's really, really important to be patient and to let everything cook down and release all their flavors so that all the ingredients come together in the right way. Now that we're quarantined, we do have a lot of time, so here you go. Finally, yeah, they've been sitting here on the side, patiently waiting. I'm going to add them to the onions and flour and butter and olive oil. All right, and then just going to break them up a little bit. These are whole tomatoes, Roma tomatoes. I'm going to break them up. Mix them in a bit. All right. Now, to give that tomato soup some extra flavor, I'm going to add some herbs. I don't have any fresh herbs on me, but I do have some dried ones. I've got bay leaf and oregano, or oregano, depending on where you're from. All right, here's your bay leaf. I've got 3 small bay leaves here. And oregano. Now this oregano is very special. It came from the garden of Mr. Giannis's house. El Cristo, buddy. All right, now a full teaspoon of sugar. You might think sugar is a strange thing to put into tomato soup, but remember, tomatoes have a lot of acid in them. And the tomatoes and the acid in the tomatoes are going to be a bit sour in the mouth, and sugar is going to balance that out. So, sugar. Been cooking for about 30 minutes now, and we're ready to mix it together. We're going to use this tool. It's called an immersion blender or a stick mixer or a lightsaber. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. We're going to use that to puree this soup. If you do not have one of these, you can use A food processor or a blender is just a little bit messier. I prefer to use this. This comes off, it goes straight in the dishwasher, no problem. Okay, this is what the soup looks like at this point. As you can see, it's cooked down some, and now I'm going to blend it. Okay, you want to have it completely pureed, no chunks anywhere, and ready to serve.